Thank you for coming so early. So lately I've been reading about people who've been avoiding state and slavery and so on in an area in Southeast Asia that is called Zomia. It's the size of Europe. And they have developed strategies to basically become ungovernable. And I think it relates to Cypherpunk quite a lot. And what we would like to talk about today at this panel is how does this strategy work, who is it for, and what tools we can use. So my first question for the panel is, how does it work? How does this strategy work, crypto-anarchy strategy with Cypherpunk tech? And how does it increase our liberty right now, mainly in the digital realm, because we are not growing carrots like the people of Southeast Asia, but we are living on the internet. So, Rockstar, maybe you can start.
Yeah, I can start with, because I always saw that the main goal of cypherpunks is to produce technology that empowers individual. And over the last couple of decades, we pretty much got everything that we wanted from the technology. Like if you are a cypherpunk today, you have secure communication, you have now electronic cash, digital cash, thanks to Bitcoin. So all those things that we wanted are now available for anyone. And with advent of, say, Signal, now cryptography is in everyday life of everyone. So if they want to use it. So yeah, I really think cypherpunk technologies are for everyone. And especially as AI and large language models become more and more powerful and ubiquitous, more and more people will realize the power of keeping their data for themselves rather than giving it to some big corporation and getting into a position where a big corporation has more data on you than you have on yourself and is then weaponizing that data to program you, to direct you in a certain way. So I think it's for everyone. And then when we get into crypto anarchy and other stuff, that's where, you know, we may, so there may be people who are like, okay, I'm not for anarchy. You know, the word doesn't sound good to me. But I think it's for everyone, and I look forward to hearing more from my fellow panelists on the topic.
I guess let's start with defining what crypto anarchy means, right? It comes from the Greek word anarchy, meaning the prefix an, without or the absence of, and the suffix archon, which means rulers or masters. And so anarchy is simply a system without slavery, right? With an absence of theft and coercion. In other words, freedom. Right? And so anarchy sounds scary, but it's actually everyday life. Most people don't steal from each other or hurt them or enslave each other. We're all living quite peacefully here today. And crypto comes from cryptography, right? To hide, to conceal. And specifically comes from a branch of math and science called cryptology, where we use large numbers and quite simple math formulas to obscure a message, right? To make it such that you can tell someone something without any middleman being able to read the actual message that you want to say. And so with cryptography, we can ensure privacy. And that means that we have the ability to choose whom we say what to. So to the ability to selectively reveal ourselves to the world. And this is a powerful strategy because it makes it more difficult for someone to steal from you. Right? If the adversary does not know where you are, who you are, and what you have and what you're trading, then taking that away from you is much more difficult. So cryptography, crypto-anarchy, that's a strategy to achieve freedom and to abolish slavery while using simple tools and technologies to enable humans to speak freely and to trade freely.
I would add one thing, and that is that basically...
Bitcoin or slavery, let's go.
Yeah, Bitcoin or slavery. I would add that this is not a philosophy that needs to change the world. You can adopt it for your life, without, elections or the whole world around you changing. So compared to other, like, let's say, political philosophy, or compared to political philosophies, I don't think crypto-anarchy is a political philosophy that much, like communism or whatever. For you to be successful in this strategy, you don't have to convince others. You can just interact with other like-minded people. So that's a very good distinction, because we can do it today, as you can see here with Uncle. That is how a crypto-anarchist looks like in meat space.
No, Bitcoiner, sorry.
Usually crypto-anarchists are black, though, so he's the white angel today.
Yes. Zach?
Yeah, so I would just like to start that with the original cypherpunks. The group was well before even the internet. Well, obviously before Bitcoin, but before the internet as well. And it was just as personal computers were becoming a big thing, and they were very concerned about what happens when people put all their digital data out there. And at the time, encryption wasn't something that everybody could just use. They had to actually fight for it. And at the time, I think probably one of the things that they were most concerned about was email. And if we look at email today, it's probably one of the least private things that exists, and we all use it. And it goes through, every time you write an email, it goes through several servers, completely unencrypted. Everything you write there is open to the world, basically. And so understanding, I think, the philosophy of the cypherpunks is important for day-to-day use of anything from messaging to Bitcoin, understanding why it's important to keep the information close to you and the data close to you. And so I think that privacy is kind of the glue that brings everything together, and that's kind of, for me, the first part of it is to try to figure out, okay, what's the world I'm living in? How do I first make sure that my data doesn't get too far? It's almost impossible in this day and world to keep yourself completely private. Every time you go out to the supermarket, 20 people have taken selfies with you in it. But you can definitely try to at least be aware of the fact that every time you write something on a message, Signal's a great example of that. Try to make it as private as possible. Try to make sure that whenever you're using these things correctly, whenever possible in Signal, make sure you verify the users. It could be somebody else that's tricking you, that's writing you, that's not actually the person intended. And so understanding some of the basic fundamentals of what the original cypherpunks were fighting for, I think, is the first step. And then the other part is really understanding what is all this data, which hands is it getting into, and you were talking about slaves and information. I remember about 10 years ago, I was part of the Free State Project in New Hampshire, and what they would call IDs and what they would call driver's license, which is basically slave cards. And that's how they'd see it. That's information that they're forced to give over that they don't want to, and a number that's attached to them that they don't want. And so that's kind of an example of a small community that wasn't necessarily cypherpunk, but it definitely was more along the lines of anarcho-capitalism, of like, we want to keep everything close, we want our individual freedom, and we're coming together to fight for it as a community.
Yeah, I think it's important when we're talking about cypherpunks to understand, there's a certain aspect of it where people talk about, the government's doing this and we have to protect ourselves from it and all that. It's important to know the why. What's the real reason this developed that way? And that is, we inherited public key cryptography. It was brand new at the time, but we had it and we had the internet. And those of us who were the right age and the right position at the time and who were analytical enough, we saw where this leads. This is a new world. This is like discovering America in 1492. We have new continents open to us. With cryptography, we can protect what we do from everybody else, from anybody who wants to do anything to us. We have a way to advance. We have a way to move forward. And the problem was that the various governments and other organizations, they're hierarchical. They're like dinosaurs. They're giant. They move at 2 miles an hour and crush everything in their path. Well, this was the problem. And it wasn't that we wanted to just, take them apart. It's they were in our way. We wanted to move forward. We wanted to become more. We wanted to do more and be more. And they were in our way. The first people who released PGP, which is the good good encryption program, they just about went to jail for doing it. And we're saying, this is anti-progress. This monolithic, gigantic thing that unfortunately our neighbors think they need to give their lives for is in our way. And we want to be more and be better. And that's really the kernel of why this thing went forward the way it did. Because we wanted to be more and we saw that it was possible. So that's really, for me, what Cypherpunks was about, and crypto anarchy, which probably we should call voluntaryism. It's a lot less scary. It means the same thing. But that's really where it began. That was the thing. We wanted to go ahead, not be stuck.
Yes, I want to add to what Paul is saying, because for me it's exactly that. And when you put on a mask and have the persona for Bitcoin and a separate identity, it's so much easier for people to identify you as something. So, some people identify me as an anarchist, and I'm not. I understand anarchists because there are proud people that do not want to give their energy, time, life to feed this crazy fiat high velocity trash economy system we live in. Like, if you are a citizen of US, you are feeding the wars that are happening now with your tax money. And a lot of people say, like, no, I want ability to opt out of that. And that's where it comes from. There it's like, I want to live on my own. I want to live on a farm. I do not want to feed this crazy system. So I understand those people, and more power to you. For myself, yeah, I like society most of the time. And I understand, like, politics. I love our politicians. Really, I love you all, because we have part of population that has psychotic tendencies. So it's much better to organize elections every 4 years and let them run, parliaments, do their little games. And because if we didn't do that for them, they would be running bands, mafia. So this is a much better system. I love you all. Keep running elections, and take care of your people.
Perfect. So I think that.
Yeah. See, more love for politicians. Who would think at BTC Prague?
Sure. I think that one of the important ways how to look at this is. Because when we talk about cypherpunk tech, it is people usually talk about protecting us in the digital realm. But I think what it allows you to do as well is create different identities and separate some of your actions and some of your wealth from your physical body. Your physical body is the only thing that can go to jail. You cannot jail an Austria identity. You can maybe delete a Twitter account, but if you are able to separate, okay, this is like a Rockstar is a Bitcoin persona, and it's separate from my family persona, from other aspects of my life. And now the question is, okay, is it only for criminals? Is everybody secretly writing code to overthrow the powerful and everything? But we have experienced the pandemic, and our bodies were jailed in our homes. So it was literally home arrest. And even if you live in a basically free country, I think Czech Republic is quite nice and quite free. You can do many things here. It can change like this, and it is very good if we have these technologies available to us, and if we can use them in a way where we, for example, can detach our earning capacity from our body. So remote work is cool even among normies, and if you do remote work in the cyphersphere and not attached to your physical identity, you are much more free. So my question, my next question to you is, who is this for? Is this for normal people? You know, if you are not doing anything wrong, if you are just a normal person, why don't we just comply? Why don't, you know, why all this fuss, all this encryption, and why?
No, it's absolutely for criminals. You know, all you criminals in the audience that want individual freedom, this is for you. No, seriously, I mean, also for me, it's the reason why I wear a mask and why I separate my Bitcoin identity is because God only gives you one face, one body. And I want to keep that for my private life. And I think instinctively everyone understands that. Because I'm also doing this more to protect, you know, my likeness from AI, from large language models, from that data harvesting. And on top of that, it has that nice side benefit of once you put it on, like anyone else can join me, you know. If there are rock stars out there in the audience, you can also put a mask, put a sunglasses hat, and you come to, you will get into pretty cool parties. You just come there, you're like, hey, I'm Rockstar. You know, they will let you in. So it's more you represent an idea. You represent Cypherpunk developers who have been working anonymously. They, you know, you don't want the credit at the end of the day. You're like, if we get ahead, as Paul says, if we manage to go over this hump that's set by governments and you know, large corporations, and I don't think they did it maliciously, but it's just inertia of the system through which we need to break through and provide more individual freedom for everyone. Like, we need to build better technologies, right?
Yeah, and so I think the system is for people who want to build. Artists want to create something beautiful, something delightful, right? Something to help others. This entrepreneurial spirit to solve problems and live a peaceful and a good life. That is essential for that's the outcome of applying this philosophy to your daily life. Simply because you have less obstacles in your way. You have more freedom to build and to create. And so this is not only for criminals. This is for anyone who wants to be useful in this life and to have an impact that will last.
Yeah, and so I think it really depends what society you're living in. And so the more free your society, the less you have to fight for freedoms. And the more you need it, the more you need to be aware of the fact that if you're in a place that has very low freedom of speech or deteriorating freedom of speech, that's when you need these tools more and more. And if you just assume that everything will always be fine and not prepare yourself for it, then you might be up for a very bad surprise and it might be too late from the time you figure it out. And so I think especially people that are here, that are interested in Bitcoin, you can't have proper use of Bitcoin without privacy. And what you're going to end up getting is the watered down version of Bitcoin of buying an ETF or buying it on an exchange, and that can get confiscated very easily for a variety of different reasons, just like they do with regular fiat currency. And so if you're going at this from the point of view that Bitcoin is necessary for the reasons that it was created, then you have to be able to understand privacy and fight for that for yourself, because you may end up needing it one day and you need to know exactly at least what the basic tools are for you to use it.
Every time you have a hierarchy, and I'm kind of going back to my previous point, but every time you have a hierarchy, it is prone to abuse people. I mean, my God, what happened in the last 5 years? The amount of social pain put on people if they didn't toe the line, even if they questioned the line. And I'm not even saying anybody was right or wrong. The fact that you would be punished if you didn't follow where you were told to go. Here we are in Eastern Europe. Look what happened not too many years ago under the USSR. The amount of pressure put on people, and it's not so much about giving them your money or obeying their silly rules or not being able to get the food you want or things like this. It's being able to develop as a person. When you have social pain coming on you, if you do something different, you need privacy, you need anonymity to develop as a human being. You need some sort of protection around you. So you can say something that you think is right, but could maybe be wrong, and you're not going to get shamed, you're not going to get kicked out of the public square, you're not going to be torn apart by important people. You have to be able to experiment. If not, what are we? If we can't act on what we think is right and take a risk and put it in the world, gee, I think this is better. If you can't say that, what are we? So you need privacy, you need anonymity, you need some kind of hedge against hierarchical tribalism, for lack of a better word. There's better ways to say it, I'm sure. If I had a keyboard in front of me in an hour, I'd come up with something a lot more eloquent. But we need this to develop as humans, not forget about money, forget about obedience and disobedience. To develop as people, we need to be able to experiment. We need to make choices that are wrong. So we learn what in us produced the wrong thing so we can improve it and do the right thing next time.
Hear, hear.
So I began with a observation of the people who have been evading states and slavery in Southeast Asia. And what is interesting about them is they have been doing this for at least 2,000 years. And they have evolved these strategies to avoid being captured as slaves, being excessively taxed, enrolled into military and so on. And what is interesting is that they would adapt to the current situation. So sometimes the state would not be violent, they would want to trade. They were producing many products that came only from the hills, like spices and many other things. So when the state captured society was friendly, they would be friendly, they would trade, but once they got crazy, they could basically disappear. So my next question, first of all, it's an observation. Crypto-anarchy looks very much different in North Korea, in Prague, in Nigeria, in whatever country you're in. And the question is about the adaptation. What if it gets banned? Everyone says, oh, well, they can just ban Bitcoin. They can just introduce chat control and goodbye signal because it will not serve its purpose. So how do we adapt to the surrounding society and maybe political environment?
I mean, it's not easy. You know, I see that most people, they tolerate aggression of their governments they're under because of just that's the position they're in. It's sunk cost fallacy. For most people, the way that governments get you is, you know, you start a family, you have kids, and those kids develop connections, they start going to school, and suddenly you're tolerating things that you as an individual wouldn't be tolerating. Because you gotta live in that system and you gotta say the right words in order not even to protect yourself, but protect your family, protect those you care about. So it's an adaptation. And as you say, government is a technology. We developed that technology in order to create better, more robust, scalable societies. But we are getting to the point where we're realizing now, everyone is realizing, like, we cannot have governments control money through central banks. It's just too much power. So many times they're like, oh, we just got to print this round. You know, it's quantitative easing. You guys don't understand. It's super complex macroeconomy. We have the experts. And the result is like, we'll print $1 trillion. But it's going to go to good causes, we promise you. Like, we're protecting you. And you see that its amount of power they cannot sustain, they cannot control, they cannot use. So luckily, thank God for Bitcoin, we're now separating state and money, and politicians are helping us, right? They understand that in 4 years they will not be in power, so they got to print as much as they can, turn it over to their private controlled funds. So thank you for that. Let's keep going. Let's separate state and money, and everyone will be better.
One thing to highlight here is a great observation by Eric
Yeah,
Vosko.
I was like, guys, we should clap for this. It's okay. They're not recording you, so.
Eric Vosko made a great point in his amazing book, Crypto Economics, on the fundamental principles of Bitcoin, that any security technology, encryption, Bitcoin, a safe deposit box for your gold, any of these technologies only provide you security if you resist an attacker. Right? Resistance is axiomatic. It is assumed to be there. Otherwise, the technology simply does not work. And this is the case with Bitcoin, right? If you would not resist the inflationary pressures of the fiat currencies and simply accept it and keep using the fiat currencies instead of holding Bitcoin, Bitcoin cannot do anything for you. And if someone comes with a $5 wrench and asks you kindly for your 12 words and passphrase, and you don't resist this attack, then the cryptography of Bitcoin cannot protect you. And so, and to Juraj's earlier point, the systems that we're building are not necessarily for everyone, because not everyone wants to resist, because resistance comes at a cost. It's just that we have decreased the cost of resistance, and we've increased the cost of attack. So we've switched the game theory around a little bit, and we've made it more profitable to resist. And this is an opportunity that you can use if you want to, but you don't have to, and nobody will force it on you. It is, however, a technology that is now available to be used for those who are courageous enough to do so.
Yeah, I think those are all really, really great points. And it was a lot of what I wanted to say, so I'll make this short. But Bitcoin was, I think when Bitcoin came into the world, there was no expectation that it would be this legal thing that needed support from politicians. And in fact, you had previous technologies that weren't decentralized. You had e-gold, you had Liberty Dollar, even PayPal in its original form. It was intended to be a currency, and very quickly turned out that none of those were happening. And so the government is not interested in a competing currency, and it just didn't realize what Bitcoin was until it had kind of some form of enough mainstream adoption for that made it very hard for them to ban it. But other countries tried banning Bitcoin on different levels, including China and Russia, and it backfired. And so Bitcoin has to be resistant to banning. Otherwise it has no real value on its own.
You know, it's very interesting that cryptography revolutionized revolution. There was an American president who said, you know, those who make a peaceful revolution impossible make violent revolution certain. And, you know, I'm certainly no fan of violence, but he did have a point in this. And you see, governments, every government in the history of the world has gone up and has gone down. Where is the great Pharaoh? Where is Caesar? Where is Napoleon? Where are they? They're gone. Their systems are gone. They all go. Question is how fast and when, because they overreach and then it breaks apart and people rebel. Well, nobody wants rebellion with guns. I mean, this is horrible. Even, you know, win or lose, it's horrific. It's terrible. It's bad for everyone involved. With cryptography, we have a way, a weapon, if you will, that uses no violence. Cryptography is just math. You can't put a bullet through a math problem. You can't. It's a different thing. So however much cryptography we have, that's how much violence is displaced from change, because change is always necessary. Like I say, the Pharaoh system crashed and burned because it deserved to crash and burn. The Caesars crashed and burned because they deserved to crash and burn. When we want change, even if the exalted rulers don't want to do anything and don't want to allow it, we have a way to move forward without violence. We have a way to create change without people killing each other and shooting each other. Our weapon, as strange as it sounds, is math. And math's built into the structure of the universe. Sorry, good luck trying to fight it. You can't do it. And we have that, and it's a gift that I don't think we've appreciated yet. Even those of us who've been, involved with it for a long time, I still don't think we've really grasped the scope of it.
So one important thing to note is that the conditions change. So what we adapt to, we shouldn't only think about our current situation, our current government, our current society, but what it can turn to. We have experienced how fast it can go from, very nice to very dystopic. And even having a small minority of cypherpunks guarantees, because this resistance, as Max said, it forms also the mainstream society. So just the fact that you have a way out in Bitcoin, that you have a way out of social media into Nostr, you have a way out of censorship through things like Tor, and you have a way out of surveillance, just the fact that these things exist and some small minority uses them changes the society at whole, because these people have to adapt. They have to, okay, now we have Bitcoin, so we maybe, if we print too much money, people will just live to the Bitcoin economy. It's there. You don't have to use fiat. By the way, you really don't have to use it. It's your choice. If you are screwed by your inflation, just sell it and buy something that doesn't have this problem. So there is no even a legal requirement to use fiat in most cases. So you can just get out. So my probably last question is about how to apply some of these tools in your life for real problems, and preferable if you're not a software developer or a geek, or you don't have a GitHub account and you grow vegetables. So if you give some tips for people how to start.
Yeah, if you are to go away from this panel and remember one sentence from me, it should be no privacy, no freedom. Look at the amount of privacy you have in your life, and as you want more freedom, like, start claiming more privacy. For me, it was, put on a mask and see how many people stop associating with you, So are those really the people that you want in your life? If fashion choice or their prejudice about COVID will, push you away from you, no. There needs to be people in your life that will go beyond that will understand you as a person. And that's where privacy is a super important tool. So try withholding some of your private information and then see who are your friends. Withhold some data from Google and see how much of a friend they are. So I would really advise you, and then to go that way, and then, technical details and tools. You can follow me on X, on Nostr. I often give recommendations, and I would recommend you follow Juraj, Max, Paul, Zach. You all have great socials.
Start with going through the list of technologies that you have and replace proprietary closed source slavery tech with free and open source freedom tech. Start with Graphene OS as your secure operating system. Use a VPN like Mullvad or IVPN. Now that Crypto Hippie is down, unfortunately. Use a password manager. Use the Tor browser. Use Nostr with Amethyst and Amber, for example, to store your keys. Of course, use Bitcoin, software wallets. Use a hardware wallet like Trezor. Use Bitcoin privately with, for example, Wasabi. Use the Lightning Network, and then go through your entire tech stack. Replace Gmail with Proton Mail. Don't use Google Drive. Run your own Nextcloud server. There's a plethora of tools available. Have the courage to use the tools that the Cypherpunks built, and then be part of building this revolution. We need more workers, more builders. So get inspired. Read books like A Lodging of Wayfaring Men to really hit it home to you that you have it in your hands to change this world.
Again, yeah, amazing points. It's very important to get your hands dirty, just to get familiar with it. That was one of our favorite things in the early days of Bitcoin ATMs, is we had, at first it was like at libertarian conferences, and there were a lot of gold bugs that were terrified of Bitcoin and really worried about the effect it would have if people saw it as being a scam. And the second they got their hands dirty on it by just using it to get Bitcoin and actually saw it on their phone, their minds switched in a second. Actually doing things is the best way to familiarize yourself with privacy and understand how difficult it is. So as much as possible, all of the tools that Max just mentioned, any of them, if it's Signal, then it's not just enough to use Signal. Make sure you're verifying the person, the people that you're talking with whenever possible. Understand the importance of privacy, and in a lot of ways, it's just like it's like prepping. You want to make sure that if a bad time comes, you're kind of ready for it. And it's the same thing with privacy. We live in a very unprivate world, and things might get worse. And so you have to be familiar with the tools as much as possible, and that will also change the way you think about it.
Very quick, yes.
Okay, real quickly. All the things we've talked about, anything that you see is making you in the world move forward, do something. I don't care how small it is. Take some kind of step. The enemy is stasis. Oh, I have to figure it all out first. Oh, if I do, I'll get in trouble. All that stuff. Take a step. I don't care how small it is. I don't care what it is. Get out of stasis and move to wherever you think makes the world better, wherever makes you and your family better. Even if it's this much, take a step. Anything rather than sitting still. So anything you think is better, take some small step and do it. It'll change you.
Uncle Rockstar, Zach Harvey, Max Hillebrandt, Paul Rosenberg, thank you very much.
Secure your BTC Prague 2026 ticket at the lowest possible price now.